What's up, 49er faithful? Jason back with Jordan Elliott of Niners Nation, recapping day 5 of training camp today. Jordan, how are you, buddy? We both look a little red in the face.
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm good, but anybody, who has, any decent kind of vision can see that I look like a tomato. I got fried at the Giants game yesterday. As everybody knows, Jason's in town visiting from the East Coast, so we got to go watch the Giants win yesterday, show him the ballpark and all that. It was a great time, but the Giants won and the sun won. So
yep.
That explains the red hue you see here.
The red hue. So yeah, it was cool to see that, and it was actually cool to see a winning baseball team. So that is also something that I'm not used to on the East Coast these days. But so day 5. Everybody's here to talk about quarterback stuff, but let's knock out some stuff that happened before. So Jalen Hurd practiced today. Looked good in drills. Didn't look like he was hampered at all. Actually got to see him run some routes, catch some passes. Looked pretty good. 49er fans should be excited with that. D Ford practiced today and actually participated in 11 on 11s, and he didn't look hampered in any way. Javon Kinlaw and Bosa were off to the side during 11 on 11s. Jeff Wilson Jr. was out before practice started working, which is really, really a great sign. So the running back rooms is going to get deeper. So that was something else. Dante Johnson started today at cornerback 2. Apparently Tim Harris has some tightness, I believe. I think that's what was reported. And Kevin Givens was rotated in with the 1s. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more, Jordan, what you saw?
Yeah. So to start, we saw a preview of what looked like they were leaning towards their turbo unit. The turbo unit is going to be essentially with Chris Kosarek's D-line. You're going to have the Alphas, which are the first-team base defense. When they come out in that 4-3, you have guys that are a little bit more tailored to be two-way guys where they can defend the run and the pass. That's going to be Eric Armstead on one end. You're going to have Javon Kinlaw and DJ Jones on the interior, and then Nick Bosa on the other side. You have the Bravos, which is going to be the secondary wave of pass rushers. That's where you'll find your Arden Keys. You'll see Zach Kerr. We did see Givens and Street getting reps there as well. They've been kind of mismatching that second unit. The first unit's been really consistent. The second unit's been kind of a mixture, and that's because the 49ers have so much depth on the D-line. And then the turbo unit is going to be the pass rushing unit that you're going to see, if it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 15, something, or, there's only a certain amount of time left on the clock before halftime. So a situation where it's a clear passing down, they're going to have these guys be the primary pass rushing specialist unit. So I talked about in my notes for Niners Nation on after Saturday's practice that I thought Kevin Givens looked phenomenal during 11 on 11s. And again, these guys aren't in pads yet. The first padded practice will be tomorrow, but you can still get a gauge of a guy's explosiveness, particularly off the line of scrimmage. And I know Givens has looked great. Contavious Street has looked really good. Zach Kerr has looked really good. But with Givens and Street particularly, they were taking reps with Bosa and Ford on the outside as the defense was working through some blitz packages. They had it was very interesting. They had a lot of different looks where they had some DBs bringing some pressure as well. It looks like D'Amico Ryans is going to be a little bit more keen to run a little bit more man than we've been used to in past years. In past years, there's been a very zone-heavy scheme. So it looks like they're going to run a lot more man and get a little bit more creative with the pressures. But it looks like I know Kevin Givens really impressed me, but it appears he's impressing the coaching staff as well because he was getting those first-team looks. And again, that doesn't mean that like Kinlaw isn't getting it or Jones isn't getting it. It just means, or Armstead. It just means that they're getting different looks with those guys. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw some looks during the season where you see Armstead kicked inside and you have Givens next to him because he just looks so good rushing the passer. And having him, DJ Jones, Zach Kerr, even Hurst, they have so many different options that it's going to be really fun to watch this D-line go to work this year.
Right, and I think we talked about it. It would be tough to, project them to reach that 2019 level because DeForest Buckner is so good and that top-heavy portion. But, yeah, the depth thing is something that we're going to keep banging the table on, and that this line is deeper than it was in 2019, which, in the fourth quarter when you have fresh legs and you have guys who are able to be effective, that's going to be the staple of a really tough defense, and the 49ers look like they have that in spades. Someone else who really impressed me on the offensive side, Ross Dwelly had a great day today. He's actually been really good this entire time that we've been there. Let's just hope that he gets more opportunities, but he was targeted a lot over the middle. I believe he had a touchdown catch today. He looked really good. And I wanted you to talk, Jordan, because we've already started, down the line with the defensive line. You tweeted out something saying that you thought that Zach Kerr was the best player on the field today. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
I just thought that he popped. He just looked like a guy that out of especially when there's 90 guys on the field at the same time. It's hard to keep your eyes on everybody at once. So we'll go around and look at different position groups and stuff. But when they're running 11-on-11s, particularly, he just looked like a guy who looked extremely explosive off the line. He's a big guy too. That's one thing that's crazy. This defensive line is huge. They have a lot of size on the interior. Yeah, Kerr looked really good. He had a really good rep against Laken Tomlinson, where he hit him with a bull rush and pushed the pocket in, and then he ripped underneath him and almost pulled him out of the way. And Laken Tomlinson is a massive human being. He's not somebody that's going to get tossed around easily. And for Kerr to be able to have all his movement going forward, leveraging him forward, and then take Tomlinson off his spot and basically rip him to the side as he got into the into the pocket. I think Jimmy was the quarterback on that play. I think he did get the ball out quickly, but it was a situation where he created instant pressure on his own. It was a very impressive rep. And he like I said, he just looked like a guy that was going to dominate the inside, the interior of that line. And I am extremely excited. I thought Saturday he was one of the better players on the field, and the fact that he followed it up with another, because unfortunately there have been some guys who one day look really great, and then the next it's kind of, nothing terrible, but you're like, okay, it's not a consistent level. Kerr has gotten better each day that I've seen him the last 4 practices I've been at. And again, for anybody who cares, I know a lot of people don't like the numbers, but PFF had him graded as Carolina's best defender last year. Not defensive lineman, the entire team best defender. And if you go back and you watch some of his tape, it's a surprise that, they let a guy like that get out of the building, and the Niners were able to get him for what they could. And I just think the combination of his skill and the scheme and having guys like Kosarek and James Beckner to work with, like the sky's the limit for this guy. So I'm really excited to see what he has. But yeah, in my opinion, he was far and away the best player on the field today.
Good call. Good call. So some other stuff that I was noticing during drills, Austin Watkins made an amazing catch at the back of the end zone, jumping up high. That was a really nice play. Jalen Hurd looked really good in his routes with the drills. He didn't really look hampered or anything like that. I think they're just taking it slow with him. So that's good news. Unfortunately, bad news, Azeez Al-Shaair left the practice field with an apparent knee injury. Coach talked after, I believe, at press conference and said that they're optimistic that it's not something that is too serious, but we have to wait and see what happens when those injury results come back. And Dante Johnson kind of left the field, leaving Ambry Thomas to take first-team reps because, Manuel Mosley's on COVID. Tim Harris had tightness. Dante Johnson got hurt. Ambry Thomas was the first one to step in, so he was able to take some of those first-team reps. So I guess let's get to it. What's everybody here for? What has everybody been talking about? So today, before we talk about what happened with the quarterbacks, I want to give you some context, right? So this morning we wake up, there's a Peter King article that's out, and it is talking about Trey Lance, his iPad, how much he's working, and trying to push the narrative of more of a straight up, like, now this is really a competition. Coach kind of went out of his way to kind of stomp that out today. But yeah, that was the quotes were floating around today about he's the person who's had the iPad open the longest, and, how is this not a competition? So today had a little bit of juice to it, especially from the outside looking in. People were interested to figure out how this quarterback competition, if there even is one, went today. So I just wanted to give that out there because that's kind of changing the narrative around this. And Peter King is so respected that now people are starting to view this. Even if you didn't before, people are starting to view this as a competition. Maybe I'm not personally viewing it that way. And I know Jordan was talking about it on Twitter too. I'm not personally myself viewing it as a competition, but from the outside looking in, it looks like it. And I can see how that's possible, especially for somebody who's as dialed in as Peter King. So Jordan, any thoughts on that or this competition, or before we get into actually what happened?
Yeah, so I had a tweet that went out a little bit ago that it's really hard to summarize it in the amount of characters Twitter lets you in one tweet. And I don't like doing those long threads because I don't want any of my points to get misconstrued or people to not get the whole picture. But if I had to break it down like this, I will tell you this. When you watch all 4 of these guys throw, it's very clear the difference in just the way the ball comes off the hand of each of them. And particularly if we look at Jimmy and Trey and compare them, the ball jumps out of Trey's hands. It does not out of Jimmy's. The arm talent, it's very obvious that Trey Lance is a much more naturally gifted thrower of the football. And having said that, I haven't seen anything from Trey. I've seen a lot of things to get very optimistic about. He's extended plays. He's been a lot more aggressive. But I haven't seen enough to the point where I'm like pounding the table, like this guy's clearly so much better than Garoppolo that he needs to be taking first team reps immediately. But I will say this is what's concerning to me, is that obviously, word got out that Trey Lance threw his first interception of the day today. But what got me was that prior to this practice and through about halfway through it, Trey Lance had been by far the most aggressive quarterback. They're all running the same plays. They're learning the same install. And Trey was taking chances downfield. He was firing to the intermediate and deep levels, firing outside the numbers. And Jimmy really wasn't. So my concern is kind of that it's really close, but one guy has been taking a lot of chances and trying to put balls probably where he shouldn't, honestly. But again, it's training camp. Those interceptions don't count. So ultimately, my point is that while it's very obvious that the upside with Trey Lance is higher, and I think everybody knows that. I'm not, this isn't some riveting, hot take, but I also think that he hasn't done enough yet as a thrower that really it would push me to the point where I'm like, Jimmy needs to go to the second team right now. Like, I don't care about the team politics, anything. Pure skill, Trey's that much better. Trey Lance is still sailing balls high. He's still late on some of his reads. And again, it's the 5th day of practice today. He's a 21-year-old rookie. I completely understand that. I know people are like, oh, you can't overreact. It's not an overreaction. It's an observation. We're at camp. We're watching these throws with our own eyes, and it's just what we're seeing. So ultimately, I think that, yes, it is a competition. No matter what Janan says, it's a competition at every position. If you have a guy who's clearly better than another player that's going to give your team a better chance to win, you're going to evaluate that. And that's any position, but especially a quarterback. You just mortgaged as much, capital as the 49ers did. So while the throwing is really close, it could go either way. If somebody said that Trey's looked better than Jimmy during camp, I could see them saying that. If somebody said Jimmy looked better, I could see that. I think it's all subjective at this point. That's how close it's been. But the rushing ability is really where it takes off, because the first 3 practices, Shanahan, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but I think that there was some sort of directive to have Lance try to throw the ball if he was flush from the pocket. There was a few plays where he escaped the pocket, evaded the rush, stopped right at the line of scrimmage and kind of waited and threw the ball downfield, whereas the last 2 practices, they've been scheming up design runs for him. He's been scrambling, utilizing his ability. And that's another thing. The 49ers DBs look really good too. So they've had a couple plays where they've blanketed in coverage and they've taken away all the options downfield, and Lance is tucked and run. And he is fast, guys. I think he's 225 is what he was listed at. I don't know where he's at officially now. He's essentially a 225 guy that runs a 4.5. And when he gets in the open field, it's electric. So while the throwing is really close, and again, I'm not sitting here saying Trey Lance needs to take over right now, because I don't think that would be a fair assessment. It's very clear to me how much higher the baseline of this offense would be having a guy that can attack a defense with his legs like that. And DeMeco Ryans even came out and said, man, he gave us a hard time running the ball. He threw some stuff at us that we weren't ready for. And unfortunately, as 49ers fans, we know that's kind of been the kryptonite of this team the last couple of years, these mobile QBs. And the unfortunate thing is that is kind of the kryptonite for most teams, because you can't really scheme for these guys that are able to extend plays and attack with their legs and do all these things. So ultimately, I think it's a matter of how comfortable. If Trey can get comfortable, limit some of those high throws, get a little bit more comfortable with the timing, which I think will happen over time as he develops a little bit more chemistry with his receivers. I just have such a hard time seeing the plus ability he adds as a rusher, and Kyle deciding to not have that be who's piloting his offense. So it's going to be really fun to watch going forward.
Absolutely. And, good insight as always, Jordan. You're crushing it right now. So real quick, before we start getting into it, Sermon and Mostert are rotating with the first team. So it's really going to be a 1A, 1B situation. I really think that it's going to be similar to what you saw in 2019 with Coleman and Mostert and right in the hot hand. So that's just something to throw in there. Elijah Mitchell looks great. Anytime that he has the ball in his hands, he's amazing. I continue to be impressed. Anytime that I'm like, man, who the hell is that running so fast? It's Elijah Mitchell usually with the ball in his hands. He looks great. So let's talk about Jimmy. First target to Debo was an incompletion. He went underneath to Sermon on the second. They moved on to red zone after the first few reps. So it was all red zone area stuff. The third attempt was the interception of Warner, which D Ford was called for offside. So, I don't know if you can really wipe that one off the board, but the throw floated, and Fred made a play in the end zone. As you know, in the red zone, the field shrinks, so those windows get closed up quicker, and Fred made a play, and that's what he did. And yeah, the interception, You don't want to see that in the red zone, but yes, that's exactly what happened on that one. It kind of floated up. The next few throws that he had were in the flat, intermediate, real quick, getting the ball out fast, just like, that's Jimmy. But I'll tell you this, after that, he started going downfield more, especially his last few. And Barry Ebola, thank you, man, for the donation. Appreciate the kind words, man. So down the field from the 8th attempt all the way on, it was a Kittle, Dwelly over the middle of the field. On the 8th, that was a completion. A corner route to Sanu, who was covered by Tavon Wilson. That was an incompletion, but he was throwing it further down the field. 6 of 10, he completed a pass to Dwelly, but it was in the middle of two guys converging on it. It was a very dangerous throw, but hey, it was completed. It was just, it got in there. So, that's all you can really say about it. Kevin White caught a pass on his 11th attempt. And then after that, he kind of really finished strong. Design screen to Richie James on the 12th. Play action to Ayuk. This was a really nice play, honestly, and it was a really good throw. And then he threw a touchdown to Richie over the middle. He had a pass breakup on a corner throw to the end zone. Jason Verrett, who's been playing lights out. Him and Brandon Ayuk, that's prime time, in the middle of the ring, one-on-one. It's amazing to watch them go at it. So, PBU by JV on that one, and he threw a touchdown pass on his last throw to Kevin White. So, as Jimmy Garoppolo does sometimes in games, when things kind of get hairy, he plays better, and he kept firing. To his credit, he kept throwing, and he threw the ball down the field a little bit more. It was a mixed bag. In the beginning, it kind of reverted back to where he was day 3 as far as depth of throws. And then after the interception, after a few other quick throws, he started really trying to press it down the field, 10, 15, 20 yards in outside the numbers this time too. Jordan, what did you notice at all from Jimmy Garoppolo's day? And feel free to talk on all the throws.
So I thought that Jimmy had another day where it kind of really embodied who he is as a quarterback. And that's a guy who flashes moments of brilliance, but also has moments that make you question where those moments of brilliance went and how they disappeared so fast. I thought he got off to a slow start. He looked indecisive at times. He looked like a guy who was hesitant to push the ball downfield, who was hesitant to, just kind of let it rip. And on the flip side, he also, in my opinion, again, for the second practice in a row, had the most impressive throw of the day. And ironically enough, it went to Ross Dwelly again. Ross Dwelly has been on the receiving end of the last two, in my opinion, the best 2 plays of 11 on 11s the last couple of practices. And it was a throw where Ross Dwelly was working. It looked like a crossing route kind of over the middle. I was charting a DB, so I didn't watch the whole route from the beginning. It ended up on what looked like a crossing route over the middle with Jimmy Ward draped all over him. Ward had a fantastic day in practice as well. This was the only catch that Ward allowed during 11 on 11s. He didn't allow a single catch in the last practice. He's just phenomenal. He's arguably the best coverage safety in the league, and he's definitely a top 5 in the position overall. But so Ward had him. Dwelly did beat him a little bit. I thought that Dwelly really has flashed why he deserves to have that tight end 2 spot solidified. So Dwelly effectively, he created enough separation. If I would give him the one-on-one rep there if we're chalking up a win or loss for those guys. But Jimmy really put that ball in a spot where only Dwelly could get it. And it just was another situation where it's right in the middle of the field. If he's throwing between the numbers, the guy looks phenomenal. He's able to get the ball in there. He has zip on it. He has good touch. He has a much greater feel for that area. It's just too much inconsistency. But I will say, I've seen the brilliance of Jimmy Garoppolo during this training camp as well. And I think the main thing is finding a way to get to that consistency. If I'm just being objective, though, this is now his fourth full season. He'll be going to his 4th full season with the team. And if you haven't found that consistency within pretty much the same offense after all this time, I don't know that you ever will. And I think it just gets to a point where he's a good option. And the reason the 49ers haven't cut him or traded him for nothing is because he still has that brilliance and he has that ability to, be the guy that's quarterbacking a team that's going to be a winning team that's contending. I just think that this training camp has been a strong vindication for why they gave up what they did for Lance. Because again, as much as I think that Garoppolo, people are freaking out, he threw picks in camp, and hey, a couple of them were awful. They were just bad throws, if I'm being objective. But we also need to give the guy his praise where he deserves it. And he's had a couple of the throw he had to Mostert on Saturday's practice up the sideline might have been the most impressive throw I've seen all camp. So I think it's just at the point now where it's, how long does he hang on to that job before Trey Lance catches up as a guy getting used to throwing at the NFL level? Because again, ultimately that rushing floor is what's going to separate them. But I also don't think that Jimmy's having this like horrendously bad camp, which is what I've seen from some people on Twitter and some other, social media spaces. And I just think that's totally unfair because, again, anybody who knows me or follows me, I try to be as objective as possible, and I'm far from a Jimmy Garoppolo truther. And if he was having that bad of a camp, I would definitely, make that known. So I think it's just kind of, like Jason can maybe back me up, or I don't know what he feels like. I think that it's just really been, I would say 60% good, 40% bad, but the 60%'s been really good when it's good, but when it's bad, it is bad. So ultimately that will sometimes be what sticks with us. But I just don't know how much we can expect it to change at this point. That's ultimately the point I'm getting to, is it's like, I think that's just kind of is who he is at this point. Like he's been in the league for so long. It's almost, he's coming up on a decade in the league in a couple seasons here. Like it's not like this is a guy going into a second season. So I just think that at this point, we need to appreciate the good that he does while recognizing the stuff he does bad, and just understand that it's really just not going to change. This has been a pattern for years now, and it just kind of like is who he is.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say at the end. Like, this is Jimmy Garoppolo. That's not a slight at him in any way. This is just his game. It's got to be quick, efficient, and like you said, 60-40 is probably fair. I would definitely say something in that range, 65-35, something like that. And when it's good, it's good. And it's been really good in certain points, but the interceptions are troublesome, and, the checking down. I mean, it's hard to know, right? So like Jordan said, you're trying to watch the play as it develops, but you can't really tell who was covered. Was it all coverage? Was it a coverage thing? Was it something that he's not seeing? So I don't want to speculate on that, and I don't want to, act like, oh, he's indecisive or anything like that. I really couldn't tell because there's so much happening at one time that you're trying to watch it all. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of who he is. When it's good, when it's on there, you're like, man, there it is. And then sometimes it's just like, man, what was that? But that's Jimmy Garoppolo. If you've been watching him long enough, that's just who he is at this point. So shouldn't be a shock to anybody at this point. So, okay, here we go. Trey Lance, the zone read was back again today. It's obvious that this is something that was installed on Saturday, that they're just running it over, again. And to start, zone read on the first, he had a scramble on a play action bootleg. It was a naked boot, but there was nobody there. He had a scramble that would have gained yards. See, this is what the off schedule stuff, right? If things are covered up, if he's not seeing it, he can actually it'll be a positive play and pick it up with his legs. Something that, it's just not part of Jimmy Garoppolo's game. So it's not fair to say, to compare both of those guys like that. But Lance, man, he continues to run the ball well. And I noticed that the running game picked up a little bit today too. Now, how much of that is them being worried about Trey running? Like Gallman had a big run. Elijah Mitchell had another big play, another zone read. So I'm trying to figure out what was what. But the running game looked a lot better because it seemed like the defensive line was getting the better of it. And a lot of the runs would have been stuff if they had pads on and they were allowed to hit. So after that, they went to, there was an on the run. His first throw was an on the run throw to Travis Benjamin on the sideline. Beautiful throw. It's not really a far throw. It's probably like 10 to 12 yards, but it was on point, on the money right there on the sideline. And 3 straight touchdowns after that. 3 straight touchdowns in the red zone area. 3 straight. So play action in the flat to Hokit for a touchdown. The throw to Sanu, which I highlighted on Twitter over the middle, was an absolute dart for a touchdown. It was in there. Like there was nothing the defender could do. And then zone read, touchdown in the red zone. So expect a package of those plays for Trey Lance, a la how Colin Kaepernick was used in the beginning of his time with Alex Smith. Expect that to be something that is unleashed at least in the red zone. That's something that I could definitely see Kyle Shanahan doing. So 4 for 4, he avoids the pressure, play action, Elijah Mitchell. 5 for 5, another dart to Sanu on the right. 6 for 6, it was a screen after some motion. It was a design screen. 7 for 7, a quick throw to Hasty. He actually avoided the pressure and got a successful scramble on the next play. 8 for 8 to Hokit. 9 for 9, a slant over the middle. And then he missed his last 3 throws of a slant to Sanu, just high to Dwelly. No. So it was just high to Dwelly on the 10th. And then he threw his interception on his 11th attempt, which Jonas Griffith actually had a chance at an interception. If it wasn't last practice, it was the practice before that he actually dropped. So Trey finally, got one of those interceptions in there. And then it was an overthrow in the end zone to Kittle, and then they just ran one more zone read. So overall, Trey started off hot. Trey started off real hot with all his throws. A lot of them were very easy throws, but not all of them were. The zone read was back to being unleashed. Jordan, what did you see today from Trey Lance?
Real quick, I was laughing. I was like listening to what you said, but I thought the sleepy one, if he's still watching, he had a great point. And I will say it's probably me. Vish is much smarter than I am, so it would probably be me. And I understand that. And there's certain times where it's difficult, dude. Where like we see so many things going on at camp, and I want to make sure I touch all the bases. But I thought that was a great comment, dude. Just I have to throw that out there. I don't know if he's still watching, but I thought that was great. I think that Lance, the thing with him is that he really is a guy that he's just naturally talented. There's some guys where, mentally they're going to be a lot, stronger. They put in the work in film, all these things. Like Peyton Manning's one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. He was never a guy that was going to blow you away with his physical talents. Lance, his ability to throw and run, it's eye-popping how much the ball jumps out of his hands, especially when you're watching him throw next to Jimmy, Rosen. Rosen actually has a good arm himself. Rosen, Sudfeld, all these guys. So I just think the thing with Lance is that he just needs to get more comfortable throwing at the NFL level. The windows are much tighter. And especially when he starts going up against, if he does start going up against the ones, he will have even tighter windows than he has against the twos. I've watched hours and hours, like dozens of hours of Trey Lance's college tape, and he had this isn't something that just came up out of nowhere. He had those balls sailing high. He had a little bit of sporadic accuracy, in spurts where he'd have sporadic accuracy here and there. And the Niners watched that. Kyle Shanahan watched all of that, and he still felt comfortable enough to draft him. So I think that it's something that will be worked out over time. But again, this is where I come back to my point. I don't want to be repeating myself, but that's just why I'm saying that as much as I think that Trey Lance is clearly the more talented quarterback, and it's clear that it's not a matter of if, it's when he takes over, I think that he still has some learning to do. And it's not that he's been so much better that he has to start now. So I just think he needs to keep working. Again, he's a guy that's in his 5th practice. He's a 21-year-old rookie. And the bad we've seen hasn't really been that bad. I think you'd agree with me there. Like he's had a couple balls that could have been picked. He's been late on a couple throws. But the thing that's really cool about Trey Lance and should be really exciting for 49ers fans is that even when he's late, like there's been a couple times where he's been a half second, almost a full second late to identify an open read and get the ball in there. But he has such good arm strength that there was a pass he threw to Debo on Friday's practice, I think, where I was sitting there, I'm like, Debo's open. Is he going to check through his progression and see him? And when he finally did, most quarterbacks, it probably would have been a pick going back the other way, but he had so much arm strength that he was able to get it to Debo's back shoulder. So that's the cool thing about Trey Lance, that I think he gives you, between his rushing ability and the fact that he has that really talented arm, he has a little bit more room for error, if that makes sense. Because let's say he's having a hard day throwing the ball, he's struggling a little bit. They can do so many things. We watched the 49ers win the biggest game of the year that's not the Super Bowl in 2019. And they attempted 8 passes in that game. If you add a quarterback that can run too, we've already seen Kyle Shanahan can win getting creative with the running game. If you had a quarterback in that equation who can run too, I think that it gives them a little bit more leeway to slowly ease him in as a guy throwing the ball. Because I think that's the main thing that stood out to me, honestly, is that while I'm very excited and I see all the positive things, there are obvious growing pains. I know to some people, they'll say, well, yeah, he's a 21-year-old rookie, like obviously. But he's so talented that you forget that he is a guy that hasn't even made an NFL start yet. And that's what's so exciting is the ceiling is incredibly high, and the optimism just watching. I don't know how Jason's felt, but watching, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see what Kyle's going to start cooking up with this offense. And that's one thing I'll add real quick too. You could tell the feel of the offense was so much more explosive when Lance was in there because of the windows were more open for receivers. Defenders had to cover far more ground. My guy, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, was getting an insane cardio workout, running sideline to sideline, chasing Lance all over the field. Those naked boots he was running, like all these things are very enticing. And again, it's just a matter of when Kyle ultimately feels comfortable handing over the keys, because it's very obvious that he has a guy that is going to take his offense to a level that we have not seen since he's been the head coach of the 49ers.
Right, and it looks like Kyle's having fun installing the zone read because he's just toying with the defense at this point. It seems like whenever they want to get yards against the second-team defense, they can just call on the zone read, and never been – it has not worked, if that doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. It's not been – there's not a time where it's been unsuccessful. There, that's what I wanted to say. And again, the dynamic of – okay, you're scrambling, you get away from pressure, and now you can get to, you can gain yards and keep the sticks moving and keep the chains moving. I mean, it's just, it's a lot. And this is what Kyle was talking about on off-schedule plays. And he was talking about, sometimes, you can call the right play, you can call everything correctly, but what happens when it breaks down? You want a quarterback who can do something for you. So, yes, again, you have to be blown away by the athleticism, you see the throws, all that stuff is there as well too. So, I mean, yes, again, I know that people badly want us to come on here and say one person over the other. I'm just going to give you what we've been seeing, and you guys can decide however you want to. But as of right now, I think I kind of agree with Jordan in the way that the offense does look more explosive with Trey Lance is on there. Correct, 100%. And even everything that we said about Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm not certain that, almost to the point of Jordan, like saying, the best throws have been from Jimmy. Some of them have, and a lot of them have, and they've stuck out. So as of right now, I Coach kind of stomped that out in the press conference, but I don't think that this is something that immediately is going to turn over to like Trey Lance. They're still going to give Jimmy Garoppolo every single opportunity with the first team and have him work through some stuff. And, Deebo Samuel looks good. Brandon Ayuk and Jason Verrett, that's the most fun thing to watch at this point. Just watching those two lock up is, Verrett's in his bag. I think he understands what's in front of him. He's been playing amazing. That PBU that he had wasn't even a bad throw from Jimmy. Like that's not something that I'm charting as a bad throw. It was a nice throw. It was right where it should have been. Jason Verrett just made a good play. So he looks all the way back, and he looks like, a guy who could be an all-pro. In terms of, look, I mean, I don't want to be a jerk, but I stopped charting Rosen and Sudfeld. It's not really a big deal at this point. I mean, Rosen's getting passed over for reps now. Sudfeld was on the field a lot longer. So, I mean, quarterback 3 is what it is, but I'm not going to be talking about them too much. So, Jordan, anybody else that you want to highlight or anything else that you want to talk about? I mean, I feel like we kind of covered everything. Today was pretty straightforward with 11 on 11s. And, it was just it was as many reps for Jimmy as it was for Trey. It's just Trey's not taking them with the ones or against the number 1 defense. Maybe that's what I'll ask you. Do you think that Trey's got the advantage playing against second team defense? Jimmy Garoppolo's playing against guys who are locking up. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I mean, objectively, he's going to have an easier time going up against the second team defense. I don't think that's a question at all. But again, this is where it comes out to where you just, instead of just focusing on the result of the play, you look at how it got there, and some of the things that Trey Lance is doing would translate against the first team defense as well. And I think that's where the line we would have to draw. In terms of guys who stood out, there's a couple who I don't think have gotten enough attention. This should really excite Niners fans, especially because I know a lot of people were not thrilled with how he played last year. Mike McGlinchey has looked solid, and he had an incredible rep in 11 on 11s where he absolutely shut down D Ford, and a D Ford, I would add, who looks – I don't want to, get ahead of myself and say he looks like his old self, but he's looked explosive. He has burst. He did 11 on 11s for the first time today. He had been participating in like the individual defensive drills with the D-line and with the defense themselves, but it was the first time that he was out there during 11 on 11s. And McGlinchey just stonewalled him on a certain – he shut him down. And I think that combination of having both of those guys looking like their old, not their old selves necessarily, but looking improved and solid in those roles. I know those were both areas of concerns for 49ers fans. So I wanted to give Mike a shout out because I thought he's looked great. He says he's added 25 pounds of muscle. I said he added at least 15 when I saw him. We were talking about that a couple days ago. So I was glad to hear that I lowballed it. He was actually 10 pounds above that. He just looks like he is he took last year personally. And I know he mentioned during the press conference, he did let a lot of the noise get to him. And I'm glad that he's embracing that challenge head on. He's looked great. I thought that Kevin Givens had another great day in practice. He looked really good. And we've talked about it a little bit. Jimmy Ward is so good. I know that, Niners fans know, but I feel like he doesn't get the love he deserves from, maybe the common fan or national media. This guy is hands down a top 5 safety, and I don't think there is a better coverage safety in the NFL. The way this guy is able to jam receivers at the line of scrimmage, play in the slot, play single high, line up outside, shut down tight ends. He does so many things for this team. And the last little thing I'd add right here is it's a small thing, and it's, something that maybe I'm just reading too much into it. But when they're doing these drills, there's 2 practice fields. They're generally broken up into 4 quadrants, working on different things. They'll have a few minutes go by, and they rotate, they move around the field. And every time they're moving around the field, you have some guys that are, kind of walking, slowly jogging over, whatever, kind of taking their time. And Fred Warner and Jimmy Ward are the first there. They're getting there, sprinting over, running over, setting up whatever they're doing for drills, fired up. And it's the 5th day of camp. These guys are veterans who've been in the league for a long time. They're getting paid very well. The fact that, and Kittle's another guy on offense, does the same thing. The fact that the 49ers have these guys who really are the cornerstones of their team, and they're out there on a non-padded practice on, their 5th day of training camp, but they're setting an example doing that. Like, you can tell these guys are really bought in. And again, Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but it made me feel a lot better than watching one of those guys sit there and they're walking over, taking their time. Like, I'm the highest paid player in my position grouping. I'm an all-pro player. I don't need to hustle over there. This is practice, man. It was the complete opposite of that. They were doing what I would hope a leader on my team would do. And I think that those small things do actually go a long way in creating the culture that they're aspiring to have in San Francisco or Santa Clara, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. So some other standouts besides, we talked about Ross Dwelly, Jordan talked about Zach Kerr, Richie James had a much better day today. I think that it's pretty fair to say, though, that the gap between Mohamed Sanu and everyone else at this point is pretty sizable. He's being targeted by both guys, actually all four guys. Whenever he's on the field, he seems to be somebody who is getting a lot of targets. I'm trying to think if there's anyone. Oh, well, here we go. Thank you for the donation, Raymond. I appreciate you. With Ward's ability to cover man-to-man, do you think he's going to play in the slot more this season? And if he does, who fills in at free safety? I agree. Jordan, do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tavon Wilson has been getting the reps that Jaquiski Tartt would get. Tartt is still on the COVID list. Hopefully he makes a return soon and he's healing up okay. So I think the 49ers, the DBs they have out there, I think they're going to get into a lot more three safety looks, getting 5-6 DBs on the field at the same time. So yes, I think that Ward is going to be used as a guy who's going to be played in the slot, maybe out wide, and up high in the bottom. They're going to move him all over the place, and I think Ward is really that ultimate weapon where you do go up against a guy like we saw last year. He had a couple reps where he was taking DK man to man, and like that's a challenge that he's not going to shy away from. So I think that ultimately my answer would be yes. I think that they will do that. And if I had to guess who it would be, I would say Tavon Wilson right now, because Tartt will obviously take over his role when he comes back. But I think that Tavon Wilson is a guy who's looked great for the majority of camp reps that I've seen. He's a veteran who's been in the league for a long time. He's somebody that is just a consummate pro who's going to go out there and do what he needs to do. And I think that D'Amico Ryans, the defensive staff, would like to get a little bit more creative with those looks. So that would be my answer for that. I would say yes, and then Tavon Wilson would be the guy that I would think to take that spot.
Yeah, good stuff, Jordan. And for you guys, if you're watching right now, please hit that like button, subscribe. The like helps the algorithm push the video up, so we would greatly appreciate that, and appreciate all of these donations as well, too. I just want to make sure I get to them all. So Sleepy11414 says, 49ers can't stop a rookie QB scrambling on zone reads. How is this going to play out during the season with proven quarterbacks and a rookie DC? Is it an issue? Yeah, it's always going to be an issue. And Jordan talked about it in terms of it's a lot of people's problems, right? And the 49ers are getting a good chance to see it up close. And D'Amico Ryans talked about it after last practice about how it puts stress on the defense as well, too. Hopefully he's taking his notes on, what he can do. I don't have the answer for you. That's not something that I'm going to try to speculate on how to do that, because, all those guys need, like a Kyler, like a Russ, they just need that much of a window to get out and make something happen with their legs. But, yeah, that's going to be something that you hope the 49ers can correct, because even a guy like Carson Wentz last year was kind of giving them problems in that Eagles game. So, Jordan, what do you think about that question?
I think it's definitely a fair question, and I would add this: it is the second team defense, and I think it's the fact that we have to remember that Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, you can argue maybe like Andy Reid, McVay, Sean Payton. Some people like other offensive minds, different philosophies. Everybody likes different things when it comes to a play caller, but I think that you would be hard pressed to find anybody with a good amount of insight in the NFL community that wouldn't say Kyle Shanahan is the best run designer and running play caller in the NFL. So I think that the looks that he gives on that outside zone and the stuff that he does with that running game makes that zone read that much deadlier, where these guys have to respect the fake before Lance tucks and runs. And another thing I'd add too is, and it's a little thing, and I'm not saying that quarterbacks who are in the NFL now. Russell Wilson's really good at it. Kyler's getting better at it, and they obviously play them 4 times a year combined. But Trey Lance's ball fakes. I did a thread on this. If you go to my Twitter, my @'s on the screen there. I did a thread on this I think a week ago when I was watching some of Lance's college tape. His ball fakes are incredible, and I understand some people might think faking a handoff to a running back isn't a great skill. I understand it's not like a sexy thing to talk about with quarterbacks. We want to see, long touchdown passes or him rushing for a touchdown, all these things. But having the ability to really sell that fake, especially when he's tucking and then running that naked bootleg to the other side of the field, he is really good at it. And I think that's one of those things that really went a long way for him when Shanahan was evaluating Lance and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Jones and whoever he was looking at, was his ability to take snaps from under center and sell that play fake. So I've noticed a couple times it really looks like it's not that the Niners, the second team defense can't stop the zone read. It's that they're selling the play fake so well. And Lance is so fast and his strides are so big. He's 6'4", 225. He's going to take big strides in the open field that I think we have to account for the fact that Kyle Shanahan's scheme does have a lot to do with it. But I will agree that's a really good question, though, because until we see the 49ers really consistently, and that's the keyword, consistently give mobile quarterbacks a hard time, it's kind of we have to go with the pattern we've seen. And I will say, I thought they did a really good job that game in Arizona. I think it was week 15 when they beat Arizona towards the end of the season last year. The defense did a really good job shutting down Kyler Murray. And Murray was looking to run a lot because if you remember, he had that shoulder injury. So he was he was a little less hesitant, or a little bit more hesitant, and less inclined to take shots downfield. And he was looking to run more. And I thought the defense did such a good job. And I'll just add in real quick, the first team defense is going to have Greenlaw, Warner, and hopefully barring injury, because he looked so good today and every day that I've been there since before he got hurt, Al-Shaair out there. And the common theme amongst those Niners linebackers is the sideline to sideline speed is insane. And the drop off from the speed on the first team to the second team, particularly at linebacker, is pretty evident. So I think the first team will be a little bit better. But yeah, Sleepy, that's a really good question, because ultimately until we see them consistently slow them down, and we really don't know what DeMeco Ryans is going to do. And I'll end my long-winded answer with this. Ryans has been running a lot more man coverage in practices during 11-on-11s, individual drills. And man coverage will leave you with your back to the line of scrimmage a lot of times. And that's where we've seen Lance really take off. The coverage has been great. They've blanketed receivers during 11-on-11s, but Lance then takes off. So Saleh ran a lot more zone where you're going to be able to keep your eyes on the backfield, and you're responsible for a certain part of the field. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe they play Seattle or Arizona, if they're running a little bit more zone. But when they're playing, a guy that's probably going to be a pocket guy that's not a threat with his legs, maybe they bust out the man coverage more. But yeah, it's just kind of a wait and see. But I wouldn't be too worried about it. But it's not something that we can just brush off and be like, oh, it's just practice, they'll be fine, because it has been an issue for the team for years.
Absolutely agree. So 45 minutes, I think we're pretty good. We've covered everything. What 49er fans should be excited about. Jalen Hurd back on the field. Dee Ford participating in 11-on-11s. Nick Bosa back out there, even running around. Kinlaw, none of these guys look hampered in any way. It looks like they're just really taking their time with them. Like I said, Jalen Hurd looked really good on his drills where the ball was actually thrown to him in the red zone. He looked good in and out of breaks. So that's, hey, look, any bit of news we can give that's there, that's it pretty much. Just got to hope we're going to find out what happened to Azeez Al-Shaair. The team took a knee when it happened, and apparently they're calling it a knee injury, but coach said that he'll be optimistic, I believe, in the press conference. So the mood was kind of, shaken up a little bit after that. Everybody got to a knee, and you saw Fred help him off into the inside, from the field. But other than that, a lot to be excited about. Great day for Trey Lance in terms of red zone. Those 3 straight touchdowns were great. Jimmy, some up, some down. That's Jimmy. But we kind of outlined it as best we could on what we saw. So, guys, we'll probably get out of here now. But, I'm going to get to working on my article, Catch Jordan's article coming up today on Niners Nation. And, again, guys, please like the video, subscribe. Share with your friends, and it'll help us out with the algorithm, get our views pushed up. So I guess that's it. I guess that's what we can call it right here. So for Jordan, for Jason, thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you tomorrow after practice. Same deal, same time, probably 2:00. And hold on 1 second. Hey, thank you for the donation. Good. I appreciate you. Thank you for the donation.
You gave your thank you. And sorry, I didn't see that come up. I was going to say, I saw that Gavin ask about McGlinchey. Yes, he looked phenomenal, dude. He today had one of the better pass blocking reps out of anybody on the team. He shut down what's looked like an explosive Dee Ford. So yeah, I thought he looked great, man. I was very impressed with Mike McGlinchey today, and I think again what I mentioned earlier was that he looks like a guy who took last year personally, and instead of letting it get to him, he's embraced that challenge head on. He tacked on 25 pounds of muscle, and he's looked much better in pass protection. So Mike McGlinchey is a guy so far in camp, it's still early, who has looked like a remarkably different player than he did last season.
Yeah. Guys, Debo didn't catch that many passes today, and he's still the best he's looking the best right now. So if I'm not talking about Deebo Samuel because he wasn't involved today, but he looks great. Coach said that he looks the best that he's ever looked. So stop yelling at me, guys. Calm down. It's all right. Deebo's going to be good. He's fine. So for Jordan, for Jason, we'll catch you guys tomorrow, same time, 2:00 on here. And look out for our articles on there. And maybe I'll be back today with another show later on. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you share with your friends. And for Jordan, for Jason, we're out of here.